together. So what will happen is individual teams take up individual work, like functional team takes up functional work, development teams takes up development work, and so on and so forth. This is a waterfall model. So before we proceed further, is there any advantage, because you already know about Scrum? Let me ask you this. Is there any advantage or disadvantage with waterfall model? What do you think? Just quickly, in a sentence or in 2 sentences, is there an advantage? Is there a disadvantage? If so, what? Anybody? Yes. I've got a message on chat saying that feedback is relatively really late in a waterfall model. Good. That's exactly what we try to overcome when we move to an iterative delivery. In iterative delivery, the requirements are prioritized, highest being the top, least being the bottom. Based on my team's capacity, I pull up the number of stories which I can do in a given iteration. I plan for the iteration before we start for iteration so that all teams understand what I need to develop, how long I have to develop, and what are the things that I need to accomplish to fulfill this iteration. So team has a scrum master who takes care of all the impediments, product owner who takes care of all the priorities, and team is cross-functional, self-organizing, develops the product, demonstrates it. Once it's demonstrated, we have a review just to check if things have happened properly or not, and the value is finally delivered. Every day we have something called as a daily stand-up where we know what we did yesterday towards achieving the goal, what are we going to do today towards achieving our sprint goal, and are there any impediments? So this is iterative model of development. So if you put waterfall model and iterative model together in the same picture, that's when we would understand what are the advantages and disadvantages. For example, if you take this waterfall model on top, I've taken a period of 4 months, right? Typically a few months to a few years. Within 4 months, the number of iterations that are done using a waterfall model in this case is 1. But if you look at iterative model of development in SAFe the iteration is for 2 weeks. For people who are just coming from Scrum, where the iteration is 4 weeks, the recommendation from SAFe is that the iteration is 2 weeks and not 4 weeks. So what will happen is, like somebody rightly pointed out in the chat, simplified processes, disadvantages, no value addition. Yeah. So the advantage is that we get quick market feedback. So the product is delivered so early and we get quick market feedback. For example, if after delivering the first iteration, I understand that the market is not receptive to the product, I pivot. I do not develop anything on top of it, but I pick up a new feature or a new product, right? So feedback is relatively quick so that I can do course correction. At the same time, the lower priority ones are developed at a later point in time because they have less value. That's how we prioritize, right? What is more valuable, what is less valuable. All right. So this is how we compare waterfall model to iterative delivery. Now then we move to an agile team, which has a scrum master, product owner, and a team. Now in SAFe, what we have is, we have an iteration of 2 weeks. We have a scrum master, we have a product owner, but there is no development team. We don't call a team as a development team because we understand that there could be legal teams, there could be compliance team members, there could be business team members. So it's all inclusive, and SAFe has consciously made this decision to not call the team members who design, develop, test, and deliver as development team members. So with a scrum master, product owner, and development team, we have a total of 11 members, inclusive of scrum master and product owner. So this is called an agile team. Now, what is an art. What do you call an art? What do you call a team of teams? So this is an example I asked last time in my last session. I'll ask you the same question. We have 5 teams on the top, team 1 to team 5 and team 1 to team 5. But the teams on the top are called some agile teams, while the teams at the bottom are called a team of agile teams. Can you look at the picture and tell me why? Why 5 teams on the top are called just some agile teams, but the 5 teams below are called a team of agile teams? If you don't want to type, you can just unmute yourself and just give the answer. Yes.
On the top, it is not integrated. They work on different goals, or they work in silos. But in the bottom, it is like they are working towards one project vision or one common delivery.
That's exactly correct, Mohan. You're exactly right. A team of agile teams, or an art, is an organization of 5 to 12 teams, individual agile teams, that are aligned to a shared business and technology mission. That means they're not working on their individual goals. They're working together. How do these goals get? Yes, that's exactly correct, Bhaskar. Yes. So how do we know that all these teams are working together? Because they're working out of features coming out of a single program backlog. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to pause and switch to the big picture so that you have an idea of what we are actually talking about. So let me switch to big picture and zoom in a bit. So can you see this big picture? Is this visible? My browser?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. So let me draw a line here. So if you see the big picture, at this bottom level, there is an agile team. Agile team has a product owner, scrum master, and the agile team. At the next level, what we have is an RTE, which is an art, which is agile release train. So at the bottom level, we have a team of 5 to 11 members, including the scrum master and the product owner. These 5 to 12 team members individually, if there are 5 to 12 teams which are working on a common mission, they are called an art. While the team works on stories out of a team backlog, these stories are derived from the features which are coming from a program backlog. That means story is a piece of work that has to be completed within one iteration at the maximum. A program backlog contains features that can be decomposed into stories and given to individual teams which work on that. Can you understand now that why they are aligned to a common mission? Because all the stories which individual teams are developing are coming out of a single program backlog. This is the program backlog. We'll keep revisiting the big picture as and when we need to come here. Let's switch back to the slide. All right. Now there are 50 to 125 team individuals on a train. So why do we need to cap the number? What is the harm if I say 500 people can be on a team? There are projects in which you might have seen there are 300 people, 400 people in a given team, right? So why do you think there is a cap of 125 team members or a lower cap of 50 team members? Why do we need to say that between this is what we recommend? The same goes for a Scrum team. Why do you think a Scrum team should have 5 to 9 team members or 5 to 11 when it comes to SAFe? Why the number? Why not less? Why can't we have a Scrum team with just 3 people? Any thoughts? Okay, I'll answer the Somebody has messaged me. Yes, interactive is one point, but just imagine this. If you just have 3 team members, one is a scrum master, one is a product owner, and just one development team member. Is it not an overkill to have 2 people just because one person is working? Too many managers in the team? Of course, they're not managers, but quote unquote, too many people who are giving instructions or trying to guide the team the right way. Similarly, what happens is when you have less than 50 members, you have to think about, is it really worth it with all the additional roles which are coming into the team, right? And coming to the 125 number, the number 125 denotes Dunbar number. You can Google it. It's called a Dunbar number. At 125, the distinct interaction which an individual can have get blurred. Till 125, an individual can uniquely identify distinct individuals and distinct interactions. This is a theory that is put forward by Dunbar. And beyond 125, things get a little blurry. So what SAFe says is, you should be able to uniquely identify each individual on your team of teams. So let's have a recommended team size of, or recommended art size of 50 to 125 team members. Okay, so now we have a program backlog. We have 50 to 125 team members who are delivering an integrated solution. So what are the roles? At team level, we have a scrum master, product owner, and team. So are there any roles? What does the art do? What are their functions? These are the questions what we'll have. So let's quickly jump to that. The art has 5 specialty roles. One is a product management. Like a team has a product owner who takes care of the priorities of the team backlog, a product management, if there are more than one person, it's called a product management. If it is just one individual, he or she is called a product manager. So they will be one level above all the individual team product owners. If there is an intra-team conflict, priority, we have to go to the product management. The product management, when you have teams and team of teams, the product management is usually the one who is talking to the external customer. He is outward and inward facing by talking to product owners inside and talking to external customers outside. The product owners on the inside, they talk to individual teams while also discussing things with product management to understand needs of the customer as well as get clarity on stories, etc. Right? So usually it's the product owner who talks to the customer, but when you have team of teams, it's a product management who talks to the customer or the client. Release train engineer is a chief scrum master. He is the de facto one level up above all individual team scrum masters. If there are any conflicts, if there are any impediments, dependencies that are not getting resolved at team of teams level, that means there are more than one teams involved, release train engineer is the one who will look into the matter. All the art level events will be overseen, conducted, or time boxed by release train engineer. Similar to a scrum master who does similar things at a team level. Now, why do we need an architect at team of teams level when we don't have an architect at team level? Generally what we think, right? A team has a scrum master, a team has a product owner. So at team of teams level, we should have a chief scrum master, chief product owner. Done. But why do we need an architect at team of teams level? Somebody's pinging. RTE is an agile coach is the same. In SAFe, there is a question which says, please clarify if RTE is SAFe, agile coach is the same. In SAFe, we do not have a role as an agile coach. But if RTE is doing that, then he can be called the de facto agile coach. The role of RTE is, while coaching teams and teams of teams on the event, He also imparts knowledge on how things have to be conducted, how the conflicts have to be resolved. So in a way, he is the agile coach, yes, but we don't call him the agile coach. That's the only clarification that I'm saying. Yes, RT is doing the agile coaching, but he's not called that. He's just called RT. Yeah. All right. So the question open to you guys, just think about it. At team level, we think we have two roles. So now we have team of teams. So we think one level up, product owner should have product management. Scrum master will have an RT. Why do we need a system architect at team of teams level and not at teams level? Any thoughts? Why do we need a system architect? Let me jump to big picture so that you understand. We're talking about this guy over here, system architect or system engineer. There is no system architect or engineer at team level. So why do we need this guy at team of teams level? Give directions to the team. Yes, okay. Right. Any other thoughts? Okay.
He defines the overall architecture for at the program level, so he knows in case any technical solutioning is required or anything is going to be impacted from the tech standpoint.
Yes, that's the right answer. But just to be a devil's advocate and push a bit further, let me just say the team is cross-functional, self-organizing. They do all the things on their own. Why not leave architecture to the teams?
Then if it is at the team level, they may miss the big picture. So the whole
exactly.
Something
exactly. If each individual team does their own thing with architecture, ultimately the integrated solution will not have one architecture. What about standards? What about quality practices? What about enterprise level guidelines? Is the team really having a view of the complete landscape to even do the architectural kind of things? When you have multiple teams working on an integrated product, can we leave architecture to individual teams? No. For that reason, we have an architect at a higher vantage point who has a complete view of what integrated solution is going to look like, and he or she will guide the individual teams. That's what an architect does. Okay. The business owners are the ones who hold the return on investment. They are the ones who constantly keep looking for, is the product what we are building giving us proper return on investment or not? Whatever we are investing, are we going to get back something or not? Last but not least, there is a system team. Why do we need system team is when you have 5 to 12 teams working together, the individual work has to be integrated constantly, repeatedly for every 2 weeks. That needs to happen. Only then we'll understand if the integrated solution is working fine or not. So if the individual teams do not know how to use certain tools, are incapable of integrating themselves due to capacity constraints, they're really full with the work. That's when a system team person comes and helps them. So system team is a team that will help individual teams to integrate their work. Any questions still here? Okay, no questions, then we move on. All right, so we quickly move on. This is just a representation of how things look like. We have a product backlog, individual teams in an art. Each team has a product owner or a scrum master. Multiple teams can have a single product owner and single scrum master. That's also possible if the product owner or scrum master is experienced enough. As you can see, on top of all the scrum masters, there is an RT. On top of all the product owners, there is a product management. They work to deliver an integrated solution. All right. We're just going a bit faster because this is a recap. Once we come to the actual topic, we'll go a bit slower. Now, cadence and synchronization. All right, so if there are 6 teams, how are they doing their work? I understand in Scrum, they do their own work, they have their own stories, they have their own iteration. At the end of the iteration, they complete the work and deliver it, they demonstrate it. But if they're part of a larger team of teams or an art, how does the interaction happen? This diagram actually showcases how does interaction happen. Cadence and synchronization. So what is cadence? Can somebody tell me, or can somebody type in what is cadence? What do you mean by cadence in Scrum? Any idea, cadence? All right, I get a message. Okay, let me answer this question. Cadence is nothing but periodicity or regular interval, right? What is the cadence for a Scrum team? In SAFe, it is 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, their iteration is complete and they demonstrate the piece of work. But for an art, what is the cadence is, it's anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks. Between 8 to 12 weeks is when they're supposed to deliver one complete integrated product. Okay, somebody has pinged. Yes, sprint starts and sprint finishes. Yes, but the period or the periodicity is called cadence. Yes. So what will happen is, if you look at first team, it's doing its regular Scrum thing. Iteration starts in week 1, completes at the end of 2 weeks. Then next iteration, then next iteration, then next iteration, and so on. The same thing is done by all the 6 teams in their individual cycles, right? In their individual iteration cycles. But these are teams which are part of an art. So how do they integrate? This is what denotes how do they integrate. At the end of their iteration, all teams come together to integrate their work product. That's what happens. Now, why do we need to integrate pieces of work together? Because what is the measure of progress in Scrum? True measure of progress in SAFe or Scrum is system demo. Unlike waterfall model, we do not think we are progressing just because design is complete or a test is complete or delivery is complete. We don't know unless the user looks at the product. So a true measure of how we are progressing is system demo. In this case, integrated system demo. So to do that, we integrate our pieces of work every 2 weeks. Okay. Now what will happen if the work pieces are not integrated? Just have a look at here. All the teams are doing their own iterations properly. When PI planning in this cadence before week? All right. Let's go back. Somebody's asking how is PI planning cadence? The PI planning is here, starting from week 1 to week 12 in this example. That is a complete PI. Some people say it's 8 weeks, some people say it's 10 weeks, some people say it's 12 weeks. SAFe has given freedom to choose the cadence for PI planning, but the recommended cadence for PI planning is anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks, and somebody has rightly mentioned 1 quarter, right? Within that cadence, we're doing individual iterations. For every 2 weeks, the individual products are integrated. Is that understandable? Any questions here before we go any further? I, as a team, if I'm part of an agile team, I complete my team's work within 2 weeks. But I also integrate my work with rest of the 5 teams on my art so that the integrated work product can be demonstrated in that 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, all teams integrate their work and demonstrate it. Why do we need to do that? If all teams are not integrating their work product, we do not know if an integrated product is properly working or not, if the feature is completely developed or not. All the stories are individually developed, fine, But when all the stories are put together, is the feature functioning properly or not? How do we know that? Only when all teams integrate their pieces of work, right? So when teams do not integrate, we do not know how the work is. So art is only as fast as its slowest moving team. You might have heard this. A chain is only as stronger as its weakest link, right? So art is only as fast as its slowest moving team. So you have to make sure that all the teams are able to integrate. If they're not able to integrate, then we bring the system team in so that the capacity gap can be filled in. My team does not have any capacity. They are really busy working. So let's bring in the system team who can try and help the teams to integrate their work. All right. Any questions? I heard somebody unmuting the mic. Okay. So the last topic before we move to today's agenda is large solution. All right, you said 125 is the number. There is a Dunbar number, we agree. But what if I have a project which is 500 people or 400 people? What should I do? We logically split them into individual arts and we coordinate them so that they are aligned as a large solution. And the example that I'd like to give you here always is the team who is working on a satellite, the satellite that is put into Earth's orbit. A team of 100 people is working on the navigation system. A team of 100 people is working on a fuel system. Each individual team's activities need to be coordinated because the satellite has to be put into orbit by taking into consideration all these activities. So that is a large system where you have more than 125 people, maybe 300, 400 people, but it is logically split into individual agile release stream. So this is what we discussed in the last session. Any questions till here before we move on? All right. Now let's move on to this week's agenda and just quickly look at the time. All right. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at what are art events, what are team level events. First of all, let's discuss what are team level events, and then we'll see exactly matching this team level event, what is an art event. What are team level events in Scrum? Can somebody tell me what are team level events? We've seen that in one of our slides. Yes, Josna, that is correct. Yes, Shiv, that is correct. Yes, yes. You can also unmute your mic and just answer that. That's also okay. Yes, that is also correct. Idris, correct. Yes, yes, yes. All of you guys are correct. Yes, yes. The planning, the review, retrospective, right? All these are called Scrum level events, even the daily, right? Retrospective, daily, standard, planning, exactly, Shweta, that is the apt answer, all 4 events. So now what we'll do is we'll actually see, okay, what are the events at art level? Who are the stakeholders? What is the time box? What exactly is done in that? That's what we'll have a quick look, right? Let's do that. So this is a quick agenda. I don't want to go into details because anyways, we're going to cover it. They are all part of art events. So these are the ones below are all part of the art events. So let's quickly jump to the slide. Now, this is what is events of Scrum as well as events of art. First, I draw your attention to the circle inside. Just look at the circle which is inside. This is what you're all familiar with. Backlog refinement is not an event. Yes, but that is there for a reason, just so that we cover everything. There are questions on this, that when does team know how they're planning, what they're planning, etc., etc. So backlog refinement is just there. So just understand at team level, we have 4 events plus a backlog refinement. Yes, somebody has a question? All right. At team level, the time box for the iteration is 2 weeks. As you can see, we start with the planning, do a daily stand-up. Once the iteration is complete, we do a review. In between, we do backlog refinement. There is no definite cadence for this. Finally, we do a retrospective, how we are doing. Now, what does team of teams do? 125 people. They also do something called as a PI planning, which is a program increment planning. The outer circle happens once every 8 or 12 weeks. Somebody has a question? Yes, Bhaskar, they're correct. Yes. So the outer circle contains the art level events. We start with the PI planning, and at the end of it, again, we start with a PI planning for the next iteration, which is next PI. So when does the next PI planning start? Immediately after completion of my current PI. So what happens in a PI planning will come to this slide in a bit. But let's just quickly glance what are all the events overview. All right, all the team is individually working, but how do I know if there are any impediments? There has to be touch points with RTE among Scrum Masters. Are the teams facing any impediments? Not at team level. Team level impediments, Scrum Master takes care. Team level priorities, product owner takes care. Are there any inter-team dependencies which are impeding because somebody is not performing certain things, and because of the dependency we are hit? So for that, to discuss that, we have a Scrum of Scrums. All the team's individual Scrum Masters talk to the Chief Scrum Master, who is an RTE, and discuss if everything is all right, are there any impediments? There is no cadence for this. Usually in my projects, I've seen that this is done once a week or sometimes twice a week. It depends on how you want to do it. Is there a requirement for it to do it twice a week? There is no definite cadence. Yes, we are coming to that, Raghuram. Now, what is PO sync? Now, Scrum Masters all have a meeting with RT, right? Now, product owners will be left out if they don't have their own meeting. So all the product owners of individual teams, together with the product management, they have their own meeting, which is also happens once every week or twice every week, wherein the priorities and progress are discussed. We'll go a bit deep in the next slides, but just be with me, just understand what is happening at a higher level. Now, Scrum Masters have their own meeting, product owners have their own meeting. Now, each team does their own demonstration, but at the end of 2 weeks, all teams are integrating their work. So there has to be an integrated product demonstration at the end of 2 weeks, right? So at the end of 2 weeks, there is something called as a system demo. In addition to iteration review, we do a system demo, which is integrated system demo, which is done by team of teams. We'll go one level down as we go along. Prepare for PI planning makes individual teams know what are upcoming stories in the upcoming PIs. So the team is not for the first time looking at the upcoming stories in the PI planning, guys. This is very important. People think that, oh, how can a team decide what is the story point, accept the stories that they're going to develop, commit to stories that they're going to develop just by looking at the stories for the very first time? No, that's not the case. They have prepared for PI planning wherein they'll look at the stories upfront for the upcoming PIs. They'll do estimations, they'll discuss, they'll refine the requirements. All these things happen in prepare for PI planning exercise. And again, there is no cadence for this. This is on a need basis. And also, this is not one of the event, guys. Like backlog refinement is not an event. This is not an event, but we've included it here just for completeness of it, to give the whole picture. Where and when are retrospectives in an art? That's a good question, Raghuram. That's where we have inspect and adapt. Like you see, these are the boxes. I've drawn the boxes. So planning to planning, similar to a daily stand-up, but weekly once or twice to know the impediments in progress. Iteration review to system demo within that box. Backlog refinement to PI planning in that box. Iteration retrospective has something called as a inspect and adapt. Inspect and adapt is an event, but it contains 3 individual items. What are those? What happens there? We'll look into it in depth as when we come to the slide. But this is you can call this as a retrospective at an art level. Before we jump further, any questions here? Anything at all? You can unmute, you can put it in the chat. Yes, we will discuss who participates in what, the time box and the cadence in the upcoming slides, Mohan. Yes, that's a very good question. Yes, we'll do that. Any questions at all on this slide and things we have discussed so far? Okay, let's move on. Program, you're asking a question, but I just see what is the difference between. You can unmute your mic and ask the question. Yes, what is the difference between PI planning and prepare for PI planning? All right. Let's just say PI planning has its own time box, like any other event in Scrum or in SAFe. For the first time, if all the teams are given new stories, which they have never looked at, they have not estimated, they have not even refined, for the very first time, they're looking at the stories that they need to develop. Will the teams be able to refine them? That means come up with all the requirements to mark the story as complete. The definition of done is updated, right? Can the teams do that? Estimate it, commit to it, that exactly this is the time that is required to develop all these stories. It's really a difficult task. So what we do is teams will not look at the stories for the very first time in the PI planning. There is an activity called as prepare for PI planning, where the teams will know what stories they're going to develop in the upcoming PI. Refine them, talk to the product owner, understand, finalize the requirements, gather architectural needs if there are, right? All these things happen, even estimations happen. All these things happen in prepare for PI planning. And because you asked that wonderful question, how will my team perform in the very first PI? I'm just starting my art. How will my team perform that? In that case, they just look at the stories for the very first time, right? So even before the very first PI planning, we do something called as a prepare for PI planning so that the team is ready. Because team is already confused because it's their very first PI. They don't know what they're supposed to do, what roles are. They're just getting used to. It's chaotic, the first PI planning. So you don't want teams to look at the stories in that. So you take a step back and say, hold on, guys, let's have a discussion. We'll tell you what stories are in the upcoming PI, talk to the product owners, talk to the architect, talk to other teams if you have dependencies, and come up with refinements of the requirements. That is what is called prepare for PI planning. But in the PI planning, you're actually trying to come up with the stories. Come up with the estimates, come up with your commitment, whether you can commit to how many number of stories, what is your capacity, how many team members you have, and what is your capacity, which means what is your historical velocity. Can you do 5 stories? Can you do 10 stories? Can you commit to that? That all happens in PI planning. We'll go one step forward in the next slide. I have one more question. Yeah, I think that is answered. Raghuram, I think that is answered. All right, let's move on. So now we are discussing about the first event. So what is PI planning? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? The input to a PI planning, the exercise happens for 2 days, guys. The time box for a PI planning, if everybody is meeting in a room, is 2 complete days. All 125 team members are meeting in a room. All Scrum Masters, all product owners, the product management, the RTE, even some of the executives from the company board, everybody, whoever is interested in the product, the stakeholders are there in a room. Of course, in COVID times, we do it remote. That's a different thing. But otherwise, a PI planning is called big room planning for a reason. because everybody is meeting in the big room, right? So what are its inputs? The inputs to a PI planning are vision. We are currently here. Where do we want to go, or what features, what stories we want to deliver in this quarter or in the span of 8 to 12 weeks? That's our vision. What are we going to achieve? What is our aim, agenda, right? Then we pick up top 10 features from the program backlog. It's not always top 10. It's not always top 10 features. 10 is just a reference number, but it depends on the team's capacity. If the team only has 5 teams, then the feature count could be less. If the team has 12, but if the team just has 5, but still they are mature enough to handle 20 features, go for it. So 10 is just an indication. Now, what is an output? Output is, what is the team trying to achieve? From these individual teams, what are they trying to achieve? What are their objectives? A team must know what individually they are achieving within, because that's what they are going to accomplish in their own iteration. So individual team objectives are the output and the big program board. Let's go one step down and see what these are. Any questions here? The inputs, the outputs, what's happening here? Yes, in case of a spike, how do we handle it? It's a good question. All right. I quickly jump to the big picture. I'll zoom in a bit more. And I'll pick up my pencil here. Just give me a minute. All right. So here, I'll draw your attention to story. You see the red one, the blue one, story, and the blue one, feature. There are also red ones which are called enablers. These are nothing but spikes. So at epic level, you have an epic enabler. At feature level, you have a feature enabler. At story level, you have a story enabler. So what are enablers? To simply put in layman term, an enabler is a prerequisite to complete a story. Now, can you give an example? Yes. For example, if there is a story for you to develop shipping costs, we all see Amazon, right? We go to Amazon, order products, put it in the shopping cart. Finally, we want to say order. But how did the programmer come up with calculation of shipping cost? Is it international travel? Is it international transport? Local transport? Is it gift wrapped or just plain shipped? Is it fast shipped? Is it priority shipping or normal shipping? Does it have tax? Does it not have tax? Is it Amazon Prime or a normal shipping? What is the algorithm behind it? I don't know. But I have a story to develop to come up with a shipping cost. So what I do is I create an enabler and say, understanding algorithm for calculation of shipping cost. That is my enabler. That is the story which has to develop shipping cost now has a dependency on this enabler. Unless this enabler is answered by a product owner, by a marketing team, whoever that is who has to provide inputs, I'll not be able to develop my story. So why do we create enablers? To make the work transparent, so that people know that I'm dependent on something and we know who is responsible for that and what actions are being taken over the course of time. That is a spike. All right, now switching back to our topic. All right, yeah. This is a wonderful PI planning exercise, guys. In SAFE, we have recommendations and we have, I don't want to call it rules, but in SAFE says, okay, PI planning, you can do it for 8 weeks, you can do it for 10 weeks, you can do it for 12 weeks, it's up to you. There is certain freedom, right? It's flexible. But what SAFe says is, if you do not do PI planning as part of SAFe, if you avoid this, then you are not doing SAFe. You're not SAFe compliant. So PI planning is like a heartbeat of SAFe. You have to do that. As you can see, it's a packed agenda for 2 days. Don't worry, don't get overwhelmed. I'm going to walk you through it simply. You'll understand everything. You'll be able to recollect it after the session also. I'm confident about it. So what happens? Let me pick up my pen again. Let's do this. First, we get the vision. The management, the executives, the CFO or a CIO or a CTO, whoever the executive is who wants to give us what you are doing, what are we accomplishing within this? They're going to tell you what you're going to do. The product owner says, yes, now you heard the vision for the company. By developing these features, we will accomplish that vision. So company level vision or an enterprise level vision wherein your team is responsible is given at a business context. Then the product management steps in and says, yes, we want to go there. We want to deliver all this. And these are the features which will be helping us to deliver that. So we will deliver this in this PI. Then the architect comes and says, yes, we are going to deliver this, wonderful, but these are the protocols. This is the architecture guidelines. These are the DevOps rules. This is what is the framework within which we operate to deliver this. Follow these guidelines. Here is a SharePoint link. Here is a Confluence link. If you still want to look at the guidelines, the measures, the protocols, please go through this. The front end is this. The back end is this. The middleware is this. All the technical guidelines are given by the architecture. So now we know the big picture at company level, what features we are developing and what we are supposed to do technically. With that, each individual team now understands what features they need to develop. Of course, they already know that as part of PI planning. They're just going to go and have a look at it again and do any final refinements, etc., discuss dependencies with other teams, because everybody is in one big room, right? It's an opportunity. You can go talk to the executive, you can go talk to the product management directly, turn back, talk about dependencies. It's one big room planning, guys. It's the opportunity to align yourself. The dependencies, everything is happening. So that's when teams go into individual team breakout rooms. They come up with their plans, how they want to deliver, how they want to order it, what is their capacity, etc. Once that is done, let's just say they come up with a draft plan, because it's not yet final. There are still dependencies which other teams have to agree. There are still requests which we are doing to the management. The management is here. We are asking for new tools, some budget for some developing some other features. There are certain requests. There are some risks which the management need to answer, right? So we come up with a draft plan. Management looks into all individual teams' draft plans and says, all right, I thought we were going to be there, but looking at what our team's capacity is, we may not go there. So let's adjust our scope. We don't want to overburden our teams. Let's reduce our scope and say, teams, we agree with you. One team is asking for some tool to speed up their development. Let's check if we have budget or not. These kind of things happen in management review, which happens for 1 hour, but it's not 1 hour, guys. If the management needs more time, it goes way into the night, because next morning, the management needs to present their adjustments to the teams. Is the scope reduced? Is the tool budget approved, etc. So next morning, when everybody is fresh and everybody is looking forward to management presentation, the management comes up and says, hey, we agree to your tool, we agree to your scope, or the tool may not be possible. These kind of things happen. Now, things have changed. We assumed something in our draft. Things have changed the next day. So teams again go back and finalize their plan based on the new outcomes, new realities. Finally, after the final plan is drafted, they understand what are the risks. Team level risks, they keep with themselves, but if there are program level risks which impact the train, that's what they bring out to the discussion board. The risks are something which is called, we call it as a ROMD approach: resolved, owned, mitigated, accepted. Are the risks resolved? We told about a risk. We want a tool, otherwise we cannot deliver. The management said, yes, risk is resolved. Mitigated, we wanted a tool. Management said it's too costly. We have internally a similar tool, which is not as effective as that, but we don't need additional budget. Mitigated. Accepted. Management said we don't have budget at all. If you want to go slow, please go slow, but there is no additional budget. So we accept. Owned. Management has given the ownership to somebody else and said, team is asking for a tool, evaluate 4 or 5 tools in the market which do the same thing, come up with the best tool. So that person is assigned. So something like that happens. There is a confidence vote taken. Guys, now you have draft plans, management review, final plans, risks are roamed. How confident are you? Teams will show a fist of 5. I mean, if they're very confident, it's a 5. If they're low confident, it's a 1. Everybody is seeing. Each individual team is asked to show a confidence vote. 1, the team is asked how confident they are to deliver their own individual team's tasks. 2, their contribution towards the larger team of teams. If there are any low confidence measures and the management is convinced by individual team or team member that they're low confident and the reason is valid, accepted, the team does replanning and all the teams which are impacted do the replanning. Finally, we do a retrospective. This retrospective, guys, is not a retrospective for the PI. This retrospective is the retrospective just for the PI planning meeting. The 2-day event, right? Did it go well? Did we plan well? What went well? What did not go well? All that is discussed. So this in a whole is the PI planning. What happens in 2 days of PI planning? Any questions before we move on? I'll quickly have a look at the time as well. Any questions? Yes, one question about UAT. For the very first PI planning, is there a baseline number of how many features can be pulled in? That's a very good question, Runali. Sorry about that. All right, first let me answer the UAT question. There is no definite area where UAT is actually there. There are multiple ways we can look at it. If the client team is also part of the art, they can do their UAT as part of the art itself. I am on 2 continuous projects. I mean, I'm on 2 different arts at the same time because I have multiple things to take care. One art, we have a UAT, which is because the client is part of the art. The other art, we don't do UAT at all. The client looks at the product because it's automated testing, right? We develop automated test products to test the functionality. We click a button, the screen pops, clicks, generates output, report are put on SharePoint, the test results are there. For the second project, we don't have UAT at all. Now, there are instances wherein you work on a cloud solution. When I say cloud solution, the code is not owned by you. You do only migratory activities, configuration activities. In such scenarios wherein you are not at all doing the code, you have to make sure that if the client wants UAT as part of the art, if the client wants to do UAT separately, or if the client doesn't want UAT at all. So definitely there is no placeholder for UAT, but there are multiple ways you can do that depending on your need and your project requirements. So it can be part of the iteration, it can be outside the iteration, there can be no UAT at all. That's possible. All 3 are valid and I've been part of all 3 teams. Second question, how do we baseline how many? Okay. It's just an estimate. For the very first time, it's just an estimate. What SAFe says is, for the very first time, this is not disclaimer, this is not how we do in real life. But for the very first time, if you require to convert story points into days for the very first time, please do that and say, okay, this code requires 5 days. which means 5 story points, days equal to story points. Just for the very first time, we have an exercise we do. Okay, let me take a step back. During Leading Safe certification course, this complete PI planning is simulated. You guys are asked to come up with your capacity allocations, and we do all this. What happens here, right? We do all this, discuss it again. For that exercise, what we do is, because we don't have story points or historic velocity for the team, we equate story points to hours because that is easier for the team. But in reality, that is not how we are supposed to do it. Just for the very first time for simulations, that's how we do it for the ease of doing it. From the second time, we have a history. So it's a plus or minus minor margin because we are now full-fledged. So first time we could not come up with the exact velocity because we are still knowing what to do, how to do. So that plus a minor margin, a delta, is going to be our velocity, or is going to be our capacity for the future iteration. However, it also depends on your leaves, sick leaves, etc., etc. So to answer the question, for the very first time, it's an estimate, but a calculated estimate. All right. 2:30. Okay. All right. Now, any further questions here, guys? I think this is clear. Any further questions? All right. So I hope everybody understood that. Well, let's move on. Now, when we discussed about input and output, I told you about output is something called as an objective, PI objective for a team A, team B. How many number of teams are there on that? It's a PI objective. So what are objectives? Let's discuss what are objectives. It sounds fancy, but what are they? On the left side, I've given you an example of what are PI objectives. It is divided into two, right? On top, you don't need to go through this. Just stay with the headings. I'll walk you through the details. On the top, you have committed objectives. At the bottom, you have uncommitted objectives. But what is an objective? An objective is nothing but a business summary in a plain, simple English textual format. Your team knows this bunch of features is what you're trying to develop. So how do you put those into words so that any non-technical person, just by looking at 5 to 10 sentences, is able to understand what your team is trying to deliver in that iteration, in that PI? That is what is called a PI objective. First of all, why do we even need to have these PI objectives? We have stories, we have features, there is well documentation, maybe in Jira or any other tool, they're well documented. Why do we need to do this redundant task? This is not redundant, guys, because the business owner, one of the critical roles which we discussed, and where is a business owner in an art? The business owner is here. He or she is responsible for return on investment, ROI. Are we building a viable product? The investment that is going in, is it worth it, right? That business owner is going to assign business value in terms of numbers, 10 being the highest, 1 being the least. So a business owner will look at your team's tasks or team's objectives for the iteration and says, oh, the first one is really important, 10. The second one is also important, but not as important as first one, 8. So that's how your business value is given for all the objectives, even the uncommitted objectives. If a scenario arises tomorrow that unfortunately 2 of your team members are sick and they'll not be able to join you back for the next 3 days. Now you're confused. In product backlog, stories have priority, but when they're part of an iteration, every story is equally important because they're part of iteration. You cannot say this is important or this is important, right? In an iteration, all stories are equally important. So business objectives give you an idea what has to be done first over other. I look at the first one and say, oh, this is assigned a business value 10. So I should do this first and ignore the second one. because now my capacity is reduced for unforeseen circumstances. So business values give you an idea of what is the most important, even in the objectives that are for that PI, for that iteration. Now, at the end of the PI, when your team finally gives a demonstration, the actual business value is given to see how you performed vis-a-vis the expectation. So this is a measure of progress also. Okay. Now, yeah, for one feature, there could be multiple business objectives because feature is split and given to individual teams, right? As form of stories. So my team can come up with its own objective, the other team can come up with its own objective. So that's all right. What are committed objectives? What are uncommitted objectives? Committed objectives are something which you know you are going to deliver. When I say no, which you trust you can deliver. Uncommitted objectives are, they're still calculated in your capacity. Like I mentioned here, time is not the criteria to move objectives as uncommitted. If we have time, we do this. Otherwise, we may not. No, that's not the criteria for uncommitted objectives. Uncommitted objectives means you're still not confident. Why you're not confident? Because still there are unknowns. Or your work is dependent on some other team which hasn't been reliable in the recent past. They're saying they will deliver, but they are not able to. They have their own problems. So because of unknowns, because of low confidence, because of an unreliable team dependency or third-party dependency, if you're unable to know if you're able to deliver or not, you move to uncommitted objectives. But when the team is able to deliver, you should be able to deliver this objective also. That's why they're moved to uncommitted objectives, because you still have doubt. But if the doubt is taken care during the course of iteration, you're able to do it. That's what uncommitted objective means. Any questions here before we move on? That also answers Raghuram's question, what he posted, what are spikes? If you still have any unknowns, if you still don't know what are the prerequisites, create a spike, create an enabler and put it up there. That's why we have an enabler here. Minimum viable product is easily defined in PI planning. Now, minimum viable product, MVP is at the work item level. Let's quickly switch to the big picture. What is minimum viable product is? Doing, okay, you want to do, let's say you are in a different town because of work. It's your son's or daughter's birthday. You want to make them happy. They'll be happy if you are there in person, but you cannot be there. So what else can you do to make them happy? What is the minimum thing you can do to make them happy? Because you cannot be physically be there. So you send their favorite gift, or you send a handwritten note, whatever you think will make him or her happy, the minimum thing that is remotely possible to make them happy. That is minimum viable product. But in terms of software, what it means is you don't have to go with all the product developed ready that every feature is working. Minimum viable product is the minimalistic version of a product that can be released into the market so that you get a market feedback. If the market feedback is good, you develop more features. If the market feedback is bad, you ignore the product, go with something else. That is minimum viable product. The minimum viable product definition can be at epic level, can be at feature level, right? So depending upon what you're talking about, MVP, depending upon at what level you're talking about MVP, the definition would vary. We'll discuss about MVP in detail in Leading Safe course. This is a larger topic because it has a funnel through which it goes minimum viable product. But just to give you a quick synopsis, the minimum viable product for an epic definition, there are epic stakeholders. When you click on a lean portfolio management, there is an enterprise architect, there is a business owner, and there is an executive. These are the three persons who create an epic and also come up with a minimum viable product. When you say the epic has met its needed outcome, right? So this is a larger topic. It has to be given a context. I cannot just answer that at what role, because at different levels, it has a different meaning. The feature has MVP, the epic has an MVP. So we'll dig one level deep in leading safe course, but this is what I can provide in this session. I hope that answers the question, at least partially what you're looking for. Okay, any questions on uncommitted objectives, PI objectives? Do you understand what are uncommitted objectives now? What are objectives? What are uncommitted objectives? What is the distinction? It's not the time which is making them uncommitted. Any questions here? Any further questions? All right, let's move on to our next topic. Somebody's asked what happens in PO sync, right? This is what happens in Scrum of Scrums and PO sync. The Scrum of Scrums can happen once every week or twice every week. It depends on when you want to have it. And the same happens with PO sync. It can happen once every week or twice every week, whatever you feel like doing it. But what happens in PO sync? What happens in Scrum of Scrums? Who participate in it? The Scrum of Scrums is facilitated by an RTE, who is a Chief Scrum Master, who all attend all the Scrum Masters, if required, any subject matter experts. What is discussed there? What is the agenda of that? We discuss progress, how we are progressing towards our goals. Are there any impediments? If yes, are there at team level or are there a team of teams level? This happens for like 30 to 60 minutes. If there are any topics which are still pending even after 60 minutes, we just say, okay, let rest of the people go. You want to still discuss something with me? Let's stay back in the room. That's what is called meet after. But we stick to the time box, and whoever is not required after the time box, we let go of them. Let them do their own work. The PO sync also happens similarly, but the agenda is slightly different. Just observe here the progress and impediments. Progress, scope, and priority. We're not discussing impediments in PO sync because that's what is the responsibility of product owners and product management. Priority, scope. It can be facilitated by an RTE or a product management or a manager if it is a one individual. All the product owners of individual teams and the product management attend this. If an SME is required to give more details, in-depth analysis of a topic, subject matter experts are called in from individual teams. 30 to 60 minutes time box and followed by a meet after. Do you see there is a similarity between these two meetings? There are similarities, right? 30 to 60 minutes, there is a meet after. Of course, the stakeholders attending the meetings are different, but RT is facilitating both. Progress is discussed in both. So typically, some teams, what they do is they combine these two meetings into one meeting, which is called an art sync meeting, as you can see on the top, wherein all the Scrum Masters, all the product owners, the RT and product management attend, and they discuss progress, impediments, scope, and priorities. That is what is called art sync. Any questions before we move on? All right, let's move on. System demo. What happens in a system demo? The system demo, which happens every 2 weeks, what happens there? I cannot minimize the slide. I don't know why. It's kind of a stuck. All right. The first point. All right. Now I can minimize it. The first point is incorrect, so I just want to delete it. All right. So let me have it this way. System demo happens every 2 weeks, right? So all the individual teams are there in their iteration. Their individual branches of code is integrated for a full system integration. And this system is demonstrated. Now the question is, who demonstrates it? The team 1, team 2, or all 125 people? Who demonstrates it? During the PI planning itself, even in the beginning itself, we discuss how should we plan for the end. So beginning with a plan of end in mind. So representatives from individual teams can be chosen, or representatives from only a few teams, because if they are able to even demonstrate the other team's functionality, good. So the representatives from the team are decided. The order in which the presentation has to happen is decided. What to be presented is decided. And that's how the system demonstration happens. All the teams integrate their product, and the demonstration happens to product management and the product owners together by the representatives, while all other team members are also in the room, right? Now, if there are some features which are in progress and they're for the next iteration, we switch them off. Like there is a button which is on the page we are demonstrating, but the functionality is not yet implemented and it is not relevant for this demo. So we hide it. That is called a feature toggle. Whatever is unnecessary for the system demo, it's for the future, we hide it. So system demo happens if the product is integrated. If the teams are unable to integrate, we take the help of system team. As you can see here, the system team is supporting for integration for individual teams. This is an important point, guys. You cannot keep expecting the support from system team. If you're taking their support for an iteration, for a PI, still fine. But as the time progresses, as your team gets mature, they understand how things are, get the know-how of the tools, how to integrate products, the dependence on system team should be reduced. This has to be looked into. As an RT, as a Scrum Master, you should make sure that the teams are progressing in such a way that they have all the required knowledge and the skill set so that they can do their own individual integrations going forward. That's the takeaway from me. Now, this is a prepare for PI planning. We've discussed this quite a bit, but this is where it is coming. So don't look at the things on the right, because this is giving you a higher picture. Let's quickly jump to the big picture. I'll tell you why I don't want you to look into the right. When you have a large solution on the top, as you can see here, let me highlight it. There is a large solution. There is an art, right? Individual trains are part here. These are small individual trains, arts. So when you have a large solution, you have a higher level of requirements than a feature, which are called capabilities and capability enablers. These capabilities are split into features. If you don't understand it, just take this word. The capacity is a larger piece of work that needs to be accomplished. Capacity is split into features, like a feature is split into stories. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So when you have a larger solution, like a satellite, and your individual teamwork is dependent on how large solution vision is, that's when we do this. That's when we do this prepare for PI planning, by looking at the solution backlog, by looking at the solution context. So for now, please ignore solution management, solution context, because the large solution is not in scope for our discussion for this meeting. So what happens in a PI planning is the PI features which are coming in upcoming PIs are discussed, right? Typically, if they are part of a large solution, the features will flow down from capabilities to stories. So we have an agenda, definite agenda. We have a time box for each of them. And that's how the features will be known to the teams even before they are developed. So that's the pre-PI planning event. But this gives you a higher context, guys, when you are part of a larger solution, right? So just for your understanding, pre-PI planning happens so that the teams know what stories they are developing, to understand the requirements, to refine them, and even estimate some of them if the requirements are having clarity. That's pre-PI planning. Let's move on. Now, somebody's asked, where is the retrospective? Which is a very good question. And I said it's part of inspect and adapt. Let's go back to the diagram. Where is retrospective? It's part of inspect and adapt. That's what I said, right? But inspect and adapt is not just about the retrospective. It also has some other things, guys. What are they? It has three things. One, PI system demo. Number two, qualitative, quantitative measurement. There is some measurement we are doing it. We'll see what it is. And there is a problem solving workshop. This problem solving workshop, you can call it as a retrospective, right? What is this PI system demo? We are having demo after demo after demo. The PI system demo is the demo of your entire PI, but we're doing that every 2 weeks. It's called system demo. No. What integrated work product you're demonstrating at the end of 2 weeks is a system demo. But at the end of 8 to 12 weeks, all the work products that are developed from week 1 to week 10, 12 or 8, depending upon your PI cadence, is demonstrated in one go. This is PI system demo. That all the work products developed, integrated for all the teams on the art, for the complete PI are demonstrated in one go. This is a formal event. Because this is for the complete PI, the art level stakeholders and even some of the executives of the companies would come and be in attendance. So it happens in a more formal way. Like there is an agenda, there is a assigned speaker, when to speak, how to speak, what to speak. All this is decided. This is often led by the product management, the POs, and the system team, because they are leading the integration if they're required. Who are the stakeholders? The business owners, the art level stakeholders, the product owners, product management, scrum masters, RT, and all the team members. So PI system demo, unlike an iteration demo, which is for a single team for an iteration, unlike a system demo which is for all the teams for 2 weeks, the PI system team demo is for all the work product which happens between 8 to 12 weeks. That's what is PI system demo. It's a more formal event, right? This is also where your business objectives are assigned by business owner. We discussed, right? The business objectives are estimated. You are given a business value. What is priority? What is not so priority? The actual business value is also given at this demonstration. That the product is now seen. Do you get a 10 on 10 or do you get 8 on 8 or you only get 6 or 5 out of 10 or 8? Now, this is just one of inspect and adapt. What else happens in inspect and adapt? Measurement. The business owners will look at your business objectives, the expected business value, and they'll give you the actual business value. 2 quick points here. One, even the uncommitted objectives are also assigned business value. Why? Because they're also part of your team load. Your team says, yes, this capacity of the team is allocated even for uncommitted objectives. If all the things which are not known to us are done, are known now, we are confident we'll be able to complete. We just moved them to uncommitted because we still have unknowns. We're not confident. We're dependent on a team who is delivering unreliably, blah, blah, blah. But if all things fall into place during this PI, we deliver that also. So even uncommitted objectives are assigned values. But here is the beauty of it. Now, how do you know that your team has delivered 100%? I need an answer from you guys. Compared to business value, this business value, and actual business value, when would you say your team has delivered 100%? So let's just say this is 10, this is 10, 5, 8, blah, blah, blah. When would you say you delivered 100%? Yes, Nali says when both have same value. You're saying business value and actual value, right, Ronali? They should be the same. That's what you're saying. Yes. Okay. That's an answer. Any other answers? Come on, guys. One more. Just give me one more answer. When do you think you get 100%? We're getting this 100%, 35% is a pass mark, 100% is a top grade, right from our childhood. Come on. When do you think we get 100%? One more answer. All right. So what happens is you get 100% only when you deliver your committed objectives. So this itself is 100% for you. This itself is 100%. If you deliver uncommitted objectives also, you get more than 100%. Okay. So what happens is each individual team's performance over the PIs is put like this. Did we deliver 60%, 100%, or more than 100% for each team on an art, on one given art, right? Team 1, this one, team 2, this one. The middle, the fat line is an average of art, all teams average, right? So if a team is constantly delivering below 100, we know that there is an unheard cry for help. So you have to reach out to the team and understand what their problems are. Why are they not able to meet the objectives? On the other hand, if a team is constantly delivering above 100%, that is also something which you need to look at. Is the team really having uncommitted objectives, or just they're moving them to uncommitted objectives just for the sake of moving them there and to score more than 100%? So both, okay, before we go there. So what is the optimal percentage? Optimal percentage is anywhere between 80 to 100%, guys. If your team scores anywhere between 80 to 100%, they're doing a good job, decent job, if their average is between 80 to 100%. Actual value is also given by the business owner based on the demonstration that is given, Idris. For example, let's just say you are supposed to rate a restaurant. How would you rate a restaurant? What are the factors you consider to rate a restaurant? It depends from person to person, but you are rating this restaurant and you are only rating that restaurant. Let's put it in another way. You come to a restaurant, you ate it, you did not feel good. You said 5 on 10. Just said 5 on 10. Next time your friend called you to the same restaurant, you are reluctant, right? But your friend said, no, come on. The cookies changed now. I know the owner. I talked to that person. It's very close to my place. I don't want to travel long distance. Let's go there again. Now, this time when you went there, you're happy and you said 8 on 10. How did you rate if you ordered the same food? How did you give it a 5 first time? How did you give it a 10 for 8 next time? Right? You have your own parameters. Similarly, from the point of view of a business owner, he looks at certain business objective as a 10 or an 8 to give business value. But when he looks at the final product, he may say, okay, I thought this feature would also have this, and this, but it only has this. So I think it's 7 on 10. If the team says, no, that is also part of this, etc., the team can talk to a business owner and they can negotiate the business value. And because the business owner understanding may be flawed, looking at it just from a demonstration. So the business owner gives the actual business value from his or her perspective of what the objective is. If team is aligned, they stick with that. If there is some discussion that needs to happen, the RTE facilitates the discussion, takes the team to the business owner and says, hey, can we have a talk? There seems to be some issue here, problem here. Once the discussion happens, if the business owner is convinced, the value is changed accordingly. So it's from business owner's perspective of what he thinks will be delivered as part of the objective. That's how the value is assigned. There is no guideline for that. But because you asked this question, and it's a wonderful question, if repeatedly team ends up unsatisfied with the value that is given by a business owner, and this is what I suggested my team to do, talk to the business owner upfront when the business value is being assigned itself. All right, you've given it a 10. When will I get a 10 on 10? If this feature is there, if this story is there, this story is there, just have one more additional level of foolproofness, if I may put it that way, that you exactly know how business owner is looking at that. But otherwise, it's just from the perspective of the business owner and how he thinks we have delivered. Idris, I hope that answers the question. Business owner and a product manager management can be the same person? No. See, a business owner is coming from a return on investment perspective. He's a stakeholder. He's not involved in an end user discussion with the client or in a daily discussion with the product owners as and when required. There are two distinct roles on an art. They have their individual functions, and sometimes these functions can be at crossroads. Like, I always take this example when somebody asks me, can a person be in two different roles? I always give this example. Can a single person be a product owner and a scrum master? Yes or no? Just ping me your answer. Can a single person be a product owner and a scrum master? Any answers? Because they have conflicting things when it comes to their function. For example, the product owner may try to extract more from the team, but if the team, because he knows the priorities, he knows what the market condition is, he has certain way of thinking. But it's up to the scrum master to see that the team is protected and the team is not overburdened and they are not forced, quote unquote, to take up additional work. So what I'd suggest is, because they have different roles and responsibilities and they're called out separately on a safe big picture, I would say no, a business owner and a product management cannot be the same person. It's the same for other roles as well, like a scrum master and a product. That's what I was trying to say. Yes. See, for when a business value is assigned to the teams, are the teams when a business value is assigned to the objectives, are the teams consulted? Teams are there. It happens during the PI planning exercise. All the teams are there, right? If they have questions, why something is assigned more, why something is assigned less, they can ask the questions. The business owner proactively can explain why something is more, why something is less, right? The big room planning, as it is called, is for alignment. The one outcome of PI planning, yes, there is an input, there is an output, but if you say what is the one important aspect that you achieve with PI planning, it's alignment. So how business owner expects or how business owner assigns business value should be transparent to the team. But if the team is at conflict with the business owner when actual value is being assigned, and if this happens more than once, the discussion can happen to understand one level down. Why? Okay. Okay, perfect. Is the business owner and the project sponsor the same? Yes, you can call business owner the project sponsor, but okay. That's just to answer your question, but in SAFE, we do not have projects. We call them as value streams, right? That's a different concept which we are not covering, but let's quickly jump to the big picture. I'll show you what I mean. In SAFE, we refrain from calling them as projects. We call them as value streams because project has a start and a stop. On an agile team, you continuously keep delivering the value as long as the product itself does not cease to exist, right? There is always something to deliver. If there is nothing, there is a maintenance activity, right? So in SAFE, we do not call them projects, we call them value streams, but yes, business owner is the sponsor for that, yes. All right, we're coming to the end of it. What is the third one which happens here? Let me quickly have a look at the time. Okay, 50 more minutes. I'll quickly wrap it up, guys. Problem solving workshop is like a retrospective wherein we discuss what went right, what went wrong, but this happens as a part of 6-point agenda. First, we agree on problem to solve. what are the problems that we are trying to solve. Then we try to find out the root causes. How do we do that? We ask the team members, what do you think is the root cause? What do you think is the root cause? Then we do an 80-20, that 20% of the root causes are causing 80% of the problem. So let's handle this 20% to remove the 80% of the problem. Then we ask the same question again. What is the reason for this root cause? Now we're not talking about a problem, we're talking about root cause. We brainstorm the solution, identify the improvement items and put them into backlog. They go into improvement backlog items, which are constantly checked upon how we're doing. This is what happens in a problem solving workshop. And I think I've taken slightly more time. Madhuri, we are to the end of it. Over to you. And if anybody has any questions, please ask them.
So anybody has questions, you can kindly unmute and speak. Any questions? Kalyan, you're on mute.
All right. Thanks for that. I think nobody has any questions. I think this is perfect. If you still have any questions during the course of next 15 to 12 minutes, please ping them in the chat. We'll answer those.
So if you have any queries or questions, you can unmute and speak, or you can just drop them on the chat box.
So Kalyan, myself is Selva. So I just would like to I have completed Scrum Master with Suresh. So I also just want to understand, if I do Agile, safe Agile, so what is the advantage I will get from this course?
Yeah, you need to understand that when you are in Scrum, it's a wonderful thing to do it at team level. But when you are looking at safe, it's a scaling model. Like you have Nexus, like you have other things which are at a scale, teams level, team of teams level, right? With safe, we scale it almost to the complete enterprise level. So we have teams. Let me quickly jump to share my screen and jump to big picture to answer the question better. So we have teams. We have team of teams, which is art. We have a large solution. And finally, we have enterprise. So from an epic down to a story, how you can actually have structure with roles, responsibilities, and the flow, execution, as well as the roles. You have everything put in place. So if you want to transform an enterprise as a whole in agile ways of working, safe would be the right bet. So logical progression would be Scrum. On top of it, you can build and come to safe.
Yeah, there is one more question by Raghuram. How to apply lean and safe agile?
Safe agile, safe itself is based on lean, agile, and DevOps principles. There is no segregation. When we are actually going through leading safe course, we go one level down. We discuss lean, we discuss about DevOps, etc. But if you see, I'll draw your attention to here, lean, agile mindset. This is part of safe. Just click on it. All the pictures on this are hyperlinks. You can just click on it, and get to the content. I clicked on lean agile mindset. This is how you can implement lean. Of course, we'll discuss a bit more in leading safe class, that how do you develop the attitude that you have lean agile mindset? How do you make things efficient end to end, not just optimizing components, but thinking of the system as a whole? So there is a concept of how do leaders get lean agile mindset, and we discuss about lean house of safe, etc., during the course. But yes, lean and safe are not distinct. They're one another. Safe uses lean, agile, and DevOps. But there are ways which we can look at during the course. Yes, that's a larger answer. But yes, safe includes lean is the straight short answer. All right. No further questions. Back to you, Madhuri.
Thank you. So meanwhile, if anybody has questions, you can drop them on the chat box. Then I'll start concluding the session. So thank you, Kalyan, for the knowledgeable session on Agile release train. and accurate knowledge with your great experience. I hope this will help us in the near future towards agility. I'm sharing my screen again. So that now you have earned 2 SUs attending this event. You can also add 2 SUs to your categories under to your Scrum Alliance dashboard. I request my teammate Ishwari to kindly provide the link on blog to how to add SUs. There you go. So you can click on this and know how to add SUs to your Scrum Alliance dashboard. So we have our upcoming session on April 6th, which is an Ask Mentoring session. It's a Premier Wednesday session. You can register for this by going to our website, which is www.PremierAgile.com. Or we have also provided the registration link at the starting of the session, and we'll also give it at the end. Ishwari, can you please again share the link on the chat? So this is the Premier Wednesday link, and register for this mentoring session. This is also a part of our Premier Wednesday. And I request everybody to kindly post your valuable detailed feedback on the session by posting on the chat box, so that we'll just spend a few more minutes here till we receive few responses, and then we'll close the session. Thank you, Mohan, for the wonderful words about the session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Runali.
And do we get any PPT or something that we can refer back?
We will post this video entire link on the YouTube channel. We will share you the YouTube link, and then you can have the same session link there, entire session available there.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karan. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Raghuram. Thank you for the feedback. Now you can also give us a video testimonial on this particular session, that is a Premier Wednesday session, and earn a gift voucher with the video testimonial. Like, it is neatly recorded of 1 to 2 minutes video on this particular session, and earn a gift voucher. And also you can stay tuned to our website, which is www.PremierAgile.com, or our LinkedIn page, where we have already shared the link on before the starting of the session. So you can follow us there for the regular updates or the latest updates on the events, schedules, any information. The latest information is available on our LinkedIn page as well. I request everybody to kindly follow us on LinkedIn for regular updates. So you can also contact us to the hotline numbers, which is 9142 Agile. Agile is 24453, and 77021 Agile. Agile is again 24453, or 70755 24453 again. For any queries or for any information, we are just one call and one email away. You can write us to info@PremierAgile.com. We are right there to help you out with any queries. Thank you very much. Happy learning. Good night, and thank you. Thank you, Kalyan, once again.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.